Today we're looking at tables. No, not that kind of tables. I'm talking about HTML tables, and we will use it to create our favorite foods menu. Let's dive straight into it. Let's quickly look at a basic example of an HTML table. We start with the HTML table element to define the table. Then we use the tr element to define the table row. We can add headings for each column by using the th element. And by the way, you should note the table headings are bold and centered by default. Now we need to add data to our table, but first we need to define a new row with the tr element. Now we use the td element to add data. The first data will be the name, followed by the gender, and lastly the age. Let's quickly add another row. As you can see, borders won't just appear automatically. So if you want borders on your table, you must specify it using CSS. I have already linked my CSS style sheet to my HTML document. If you would like to know more about this, I would recommend watching this video. Also, if you're new to the channel and new to web development, please start with project 1 and work your way through the 30 progressive projects to learn HTML, CSS and JavaScript. Now, first we select the table element and use the CSS border property to give our table a border. We can give our th and td the same styling by separating the selectors with a comma. The default value for borders are separated, meaning each cell will display its own border. But if this is not what you want, you can use the property border collapse. Let's remove the th and the td from the CSS selectors. You can see now we only see the table's outer border and not the cell borders. Now let's style our table headings and our table data. Let's remove the styling from our table data, as it's better to leave it as basic to visually demonstrate this data a bit better. Let's give our table border a color and increase the font size a little bit. Let's give our table data a gray border to make it easier to read. Our table is very small. Let's fix that by giving our table a width of 100% of our web page. Now that is cool, but what if we would like to have the name column bigger than the gender and the age columns? To do this, we can use HTML inline styling and style our th name column with a width of 70%, and the other columns will automatically divide the remaining space into them. Phew, did you get all that? Awesome. That was the basics of HTML tables. Now let's jump into creating our food menu. Let's start with our h1 and p element. So again, we start with our table element. Then we start with our first table row, and within our table row's opening and closing tags, we have 3 headings: food item, a type, and a price. Now with our headings sorted, let's add a new row for our first favorite food item, Hawaiian pizza. Now let's create a CSS file and link it to our HTML web page. Now as always, we quickly test if our link works by changing the color of our whole body to red. Oops, something went wrong. I used a comma instead of a dot. This is exactly why I always test my CSS link first. Let's give our webpage some basic body styling. Now for my H1, I would like it to stand out on the brown background, and white is not the right color since I want all my other text to be white. I think this orange color works well. We don't really need a margin around our H1, but I would like to show as much CSS for you guys as possible, so I will use a margin bottom, and all it does is create space at the bottom of the element. Now let's style our table. We start with our border around our table. We will use border collapse to only have one single border. We can use margin to center our table. The 20 pixel is the margin for the top and the bottom, and if I use auto for left and right side, like I did here, the browser automatically divides the available horizontal space equally on both sides of the element. Here's some more examples you can use to style your margins. We will set our table width to 70% of the web page and a font size of 1.7 rem. Rem stands for root M and it's relative to the browser's root font size. Most browsers default size is 16 pixels, so 1 rem is equal to 16 pixels. And if a user changes their accessibility settings for some reason to 20 pixels, then 1 rem will be equal to 20 pixels. So in this case, it will be 1.7 rem times 16 pixels, making the actual size in pixels be 27.2 pixels. I hope this makes sense. Now let's give our table header and our table data some padding and align them to the left. Let's give our table heading a background color that fits with our brown background. If you have worked with tables before, you will know that it always reads better if you use zebra stripes or every second row is the same color. And that is exactly what we're doing here. We select our table row, and with the help of pseudo class, we are picking the elements by number, and every even number gets selected. We will set every second row to a different color. Here we set our base background color for our table row to this color. I need to add more food items, but first let's add the hover effect to our table rows. I like this color, and I think I need to change my headings to the same color. Yes, I like this. Our P element is a bit small. Let's quickly increase the size. Before we add more items, I think our menu won't look good if there's no pictures of our food. So let's add some. The easiest way I can think of is by creating a new table heading for images. Now in our table data, we can simply add our images as normal. I created a class for my images as they all will have the same styling. Now let's style our images as they are too big. I would like to have my images round and not square. To do this, we use border radius. I'm going to add a box shadow to my images to give it a nice little pop effect. Box shadow doesn't affect the table layout. It's purely for visual effect. If you want to, you can give your table a box shadow effect too. Let's remove the header text from images so that the image column appears without a label. Awesome. Now with the snap of my fingers, all the other food items will be added. Nice. I want you to take your time and add more items to your menu. Feel free to play around with your CSS styling and change things up if you want to. The only way you learn coding is by playing and experimenting with the code. If you made it this far in our journey, great work. Keep it up. In the next video, we will look at HTML forms. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can get notified as soon as Project 6 gets posted.